I want to get back to this energy situation now and head up to Perth, actually. I was going to say Brisbane, but Matt Rennie is joining us tonight from Perth. He's with Rennie Advisory. Good to talk to you, Matt. I thought rather than poke around the latest package, we might get to that in a moment, I want to give you an open-ended question here, and I just want you to explain this to me as an energy consultant. So the Labor federal government says we will get to 82% renewable energy in this country by 2030, and that in doing so we'll have reliable and affordable energy. Can that be done, and how can it be done?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris. I mean, if we look at where those numbers come from, we know there's a certain amount of coal which is coming out of the system just because there's not a lot of money in coal generation at the moment. That leaves a gap. We've got to fill that gap somehow, and it's going to be renewables, and it's going to be hydro, and it's going to be a little bit of gas, and we should come back to that. Because getting there is going to be, not the work of a moment, and something we need to give a lot of careful thought to. In terms of achievability, there's a bunch of different issues that we need to make sure the renewables go in the ground. We need to make sure that there's enough incentive for new generation to be built where it's needed. We also need to make sure that we've got the transmission connections that we need and enormous distribution capacity upgrades to handle everything that's going on in the low voltage system as well. So, putting aside manpower, we think there's enough money, but whether we'll get there, it's the exam question of the decade.
So physically, there's doubt as to whether it could actually be done. If it can be done physically, what about the expense involved? Amazing amounts of capital, and people have to get return on that capital. Won't it necessarily increase power prices?
Well, it'll have to, absolutely. I mean, if we, what we know is that there is enough renewable investment that's planned. We think there's about 120 billion of renewable investment required to meet AEMO's step change, and about 20 billion in transmission investment. And all of those investors will expect a rate of return, and it'll be the customers that are paying that, make no doubt about it.
There you go. So I'm not going crazy. Now tell us this latest move to cap coal and gas prices. Will it keep a lid on prices over the next 6 to 12 months? And will there be bad consequences, though, beyond that in terms of guaranteeing supplies?
Well, it might keep a lid on prices for the next 12 months, but it'll be an unintended consequence, I think. About a week ago, the government was trying to fix two problems. The first was it was trying to keep power prices down, and the second was it was trying to reduce the price of gas that major industrial customers pay. The right answer was to let the market do its work and then to directly subsidise those customers that were affected. What we've ended up with is the direct subsidies, yes, but we've also ended up with gas price caps, coal price caps, a mandatory code of conduct, which includes the regulation of an industry that is a competitive industry, which is a first. And also a new policy in order to get it through the Senate, which will ring-bark reticulated natural gas. So it's been quite the week.
Yes, indeed. Well, the Greens make it clear they want to get rid of gas altogether, and this is the start of their process. So is Kevin Gallagher right then, the Santos CEO, when he says this is a Soviet-era intervention, almost a nationalisation of the gas industry?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So we're a net zero consultancy. So we're in the business of helping people navigate the transition. And the very first step in that is to get a real view of what the system needs and what can actually be achieved. And it really speaks to the danger of populism in trying to figure out the right answer from a policy perspective. There is room for natural gas in the next 10 to 15 years. But most importantly, when you start pulling gas out of households and you start pulling policies around pulling gas out of households, you're not only imposing the cost of heat pumps on them, which subsidies are not going to cover all of those for everyone. You're also making it very difficult for those larger customers that can't transition in time. You're more or less signing their death warrant. And secondly, it's almost a wartime effort to pull gas out of streets en masse. So this needs to be done, absolutely, but it needs to be done in an orderly way, making sure that we really have regard for those people in society that either for disadvantaged reasons can't afford to make that transition, or on the industrial customer side that need time in order to transition.
Well, I think you've calmly explained why I think the next year or two are going to produce more chaos in this area. So thanks for your insights, Matt. I appreciate it. Have a great Christmas and New Year.